Please stay tuned at the end of today's episode to hear the full song from Zahna, Love and Loss. Welcome to another episode of the Grief Observed podcast. My name's Brad Morell. I'm your host. And if you would like to join me for an episode, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Grief Observed podcast. You can get me on TikTok under the same name, Grief Observed podcast, as well as Gmail. So if you want to be on an episode, just give me a shout and I'll try to do my best to get you on a show very soon. Today, I'm honored to be joined by recording artist Zahna. Many of you know her through her powerful music, but behind the songs are remarkable stories of resilience, faith, chronic illness, and the kind of losses really that often go unseen. I'm thankful to go a little bit deeper into those emotions with her today. So Zahna, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for today.
Yeah, I have to admit, I heard your song "Break or Breakthrough," and I'm like, wow, this girl's awesome. This is really good music, and so I just fired a message out, and luckily we land on a common subject of grief, and here we are. So thanks again.
Yes, I'm so excited. Like I was saying before you started recording, I was, we're about to put out this new song called Love and Loss that we're definitely going to talk about today. And I was just so excited when you reached out to me because I was looking for a place to kind of share this story and tell my fans more about this song and how much it meant to me, because it's by far one of the most emotional releases that I'm going to be putting out. And that's after just putting out that song Break or Breakthrough. So it's going even deeper. So I'm excited to be here today, and I'm really happy you reached out.
Yeah. And I have to admit, I love Love and Loss. It is, man, it hits really, really hard. And both songs were really, really awesome. So again, thank you. Why don't you tell the audience or anybody who is not familiar with your work a little bit more about you and maybe your life that caught you up to this point?
Yeah, 100%. So I guess I'll just start with, I was born in Mexico. My father got a job transfer up in Ohio, really up north. So I'm actually a snow girl. I've lived my whole childhood up in the snow, and it was really confusing as a kid because I didn't really know my Mexican background. And finally, in about my sixth grade year of school, I was an exchange student, went back to Mexico, learned all my Spanish, just started figuring out who I was as a teen, and just came back to the States, moved to Texas. Now my whole family's now closer to the sun, the sunshine. And my dad was a worship leader at a church, and he started teaching me guitar. And I really had an interest in music. Not really other people's music, just my music that I would write in my head as a kid, and it would just like not leave me alone, the songs. So I grew up getting really frustrated and wanting to hear this music back out at me. And so when my dad taught me guitar, it was a really good outlet for me to kind of learn music and get these crazy tunes that were really hooky out of my brain, and going through high school, getting more in love with rock music and just really feeling metal music and going to the shows, being a part of the culture and finding other bands that stood for the values that I believed in as well. And having some musical background, I became kind of known for my songwriting. I ended up joining a nationally touring band right after college. I auditioned and I got in, so that was a really nice shortcut for me. And 3 years into that band, it completely fell apart. It imploded. I went through a lot of grief through that. Nobody really talks about how impactful it is as a young person to get fired from your dream job, and the shambles and the self-worth issues that come with that, especially when you gave so much of your youth and your your talents to those things. And so when I left, or when that band imploded, I ended up finding the man I was going to marry the same year, and then also figuring out that I had kidney failure from some random genetic disease I didn't know I had. And it was so much like chaos in the span of 2 years. This was from 2016. I joined the band in 2014. We basically broke up at the very end of 2016. and I met my now husband in 2016, 6 months before the band broke up. And right after the band broke up, I found out that I had medullary kidney disease, and and it was inevitable that my kidneys were going to fail in a couple years. And it was really just so many changes so quickly, and it was unfortunately only foreshadowing a lot of the more difficult problems down the road, but I'll get there. So when my band imploded and my kidneys were going to fail, I had, this man that I loved, that I thought I truly found the one, and I was so confused because I was so heartbroken, but, love pushed me forward and was like, no, dude, I have to live right now. Like, I'm going to marry this man. I'm going to, create a new artist stage name called Zahna, and I'm going to go to the studio right after I get out of this hospital that I was overnight in on my birthday, January 4th, turning 24 years old, having kidney failure at 24, and getting fired, and just being like, you know what, I'm going to go to the studio and record some songs about my rage. And then it worked. I mean, my kidneys hadn't failed yet, even though I was getting told from doctors, like, I should have children now because down the road it might be too risky. And that was very difficult for me to hear because I had just met this man and we were just dating, like I did feel I was going to marry him, but to hear that, like, all these recommendations and second opinions and voices from doctors, while I was really in a state of turmoil and fear, with this whole idea that I was so young and now I'm like gonna die randomly, it was very strange. And so I was kind of pre-kidney stage failures around 2017, and that's when I was able to go and write a new solo record, which ended up doing extremely well, and it got picked up by like a label very, very quickly, like in 2018. And so that was going for me again, and things were really up and down. And by 2019, I had just released my debut solo album that got picked up and was doing very well. And I was, by September 2017, engaged to this man that I loved, and everything. Oh, now it's looking up, And then I got married in 2018. My album came out. All these amazing, beautiful things happened. It was the best year of my life. It was so strange. And then 2019 hit, and I got about 4 months of newlywed bliss, and my kidneys finally decided to fail right around January 2019. Yeah. And so I'm so happy they held on for my wedding day, at least, and I'm so grateful for that. But by 2019, life was really hitting, and me and my husband, being newlyweds, we're just trying to figure out. He's also a musician. I met him on the road. He was a drummer for a different band, and then he became my drummer for my solo project.
Nice.
And so, we've always shared that love of music, but we're two touring musicians, and so, like, one of us is off the road, and that's financially stressful, and now you're completely on your own. You don't have your parents anymore financially helping you, so it was a lot of stretching to do. And then on top of that, I'm failing, my kidneys are failing, and then my husband is like literally putting out one of the biggest albums of his career, and like being forced to go tour by the label, and like it was just like, it was a lot of grieving that I had to go through this kind of without him, and it wasn't a fault of his own. It was just awful timing, and there were so many factors to it. And so I'm being taken care of by my parents at this point while he's touring and making money and going out. And the transplant I had was extremely, like, I know I didn't underestimate it, but it was insanely difficult. Like, I mean, it was physically, psychologically extremely difficult. We all knew they were going to fail, and I did like a lot of prep classes for transplant, and unfortunately I was just born with this massive phobia of needles and hospitals. And so it really felt like I was thrust into this personalized hell for my life, because the reason I didn't know that I had this genetic disease in the first place was because I had a lot of fear of, like, as a child, like, getting shot. So I would, like, pass out. I would pass out every time my blood would get drawn, just out of sheer fear, just a really deep psychological phobia. So when, the only reason I went and got my blood checked in the first place in 2016 to find out I had this disease was because a couple people in my life had just really quickly randomly passed away, and out of like diseases they didn't know they had. And one of them shocked me really bad because one of them was a friend from high school who was a couple grades lower than me, and she was like a couple days shy of her birthday and like 1 month shy of her wedding, and she ended up just dropping dead from a blood clot in her lungs and just taken away like that.
Wow.
And I was literally playing a concert in Utah when I found out where she's from, and I had just seen this, you know, the guy that I was going to marry in the room. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been to the doctor in like 10 years. What if I have something? Like, what if I, you know, and my sister's a doctor. So I went to her clinic, figured out, and she was like, your blood tests are coming back weird. Like, I need you to come back and repeat it. And the only thing that motivated me was love for this guy that I just met, that I just had this feeling he was the right one. And I was like, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to die before my wedding. Like, that's a dream of mine. You know, I have to have my wedding, you know. And when I found out that I did have, I mean, it took me 6 months to diagnose because it was such a rare genetic marker and it was so random. Like, life was so strange. And then when I found out I had the disease, I was like, oh my God, I was right. Like, oh my God, I'm so glad I took the test. But I didn't know. So anyway, fast forward to the transplant, and I am literally having like psychological meltdowns because I cannot handle the fact there's going to be an IV in my neck like the whole time. Like, I'm trying so hard not to chicken out of this. I know that I can't chicken out of this because I had chickened out of like tattoos before, piercings before, because I was like, I want it, but I'm too scared, or I would just pass out, you know? I like passed out when I got my ears pierced. So the idea that I'm going to have to sit in a hospital bed with an IV in my hand, in my neck, and they're gonna have to insert a new organ into me was like, it was too much. I would just like, I blacked out. I fainted at the transplant classes. So they sent me to psychological evaluation because they're like, we don't know if this girl can handle a transplant. Like, you know, that's something you don't back out of because they're planning it for like a year in advance, you know? And so I was really scared I was going to chicken out, and I knew I couldn't do that. So it was like a year of just torment, just trying to control myself to understand this was going to happen to me. And with that came a lot of grief and like the fact that like I felt like a burden. Like, I know I wasn't. I know my family loves me. My mom was actually my transplant donor. She's the reason I'm alive. That's why I have a tattoo of her right here. That her name's Rosa, and it says "Stronger Than Death." And she gave me the kidney that made me survive.
Wow. And
she just gave me life twice, you know. And she's still kicking. She's doing great. I mean, it's just a miracle. Like, transplant is a miracle. And you know, but it didn't change the fact that the road for the recipient of the transplant kidney is a lot harder than the donor. So finally the day came, June 12th, 2019. I'm getting rolled in for surgery. My mom is right next to me. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of family at the hospital supporting. And I'm about to get wheeled out, and I tell them stop. And I'm just like, don't do it. Don't chicken out. Don't do it. And I just took a couple breaths. And I was like, I'm ready. And they did it. And they did it. They wheeled me out. I can't believe it. I can't believe I went through with it. And that's great and all, but when I woke up was a completely different story. Like, it felt like a second. I remember counting down in the bed when they were giving me anesthesia. I probably made it to 7 and I was down. It felt like a blink of an eye. And then when I woke up, I just remember feeling like 1,000 stabbing pains in my abdomen. Like, someone's actively just stabbing me. And I'm like waking up like almost like, you know, like I couldn't breathe. The pain was so intense. And I scared all the doctors when I woke up. And they're all freaking out like, oh my God, she's awake, she's awake. And they're trying to give me like all these pain meds, and I'm just slapping them. And it's like this fiasco. And my husband's like crying. He's like, doesn't know what to do. And it was like, just so, like, as soon as you woke up, you're just in a new fresh hell. You know, you're like, okay, I made it through this part. Yeah, everything was great, so much support. But then reality hits, and you're just like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, for 6 months, I almost regretted this whole transplant because the recovery was so insanely difficult. Like, I was hospitalized like 4 more times after leaving initially because I kept getting like raging infections. Like, anything would give me infections because they just completely blow your immune system out of the water so the new kidney doesn't reject. And they give you super strong ones for like 6 months. So you were constantly getting sick to the point, like, if you don't make it in time to the hospital, like, you could go septic. Like, that's
Wow.
it. You're done. And so, like, I started building even more fearful walls that, like, I can't leave. I might die if I don't get to the hospital in time. Even if I do go to a hospital, it has to be the right hospital because a lot of doctors are not transplant doctors and they'll do the wrong thing. And so it was just living in this fear for like so long. And then, finally, like 2020, I'm feeling great. And finally, I'm like, all right, I can go tour. And I'm literally in the middle of like a 2-week tour in March of 2020. And then everything shuts down for the pandemic. And now there's this next disease coming out and wiping everybody out. And I'm like,
Right.
you gotta be kidding me. I can't, what happens? Like, it was just the fear of death for like 3 years straight, and not just like the death of like my health or my organs or my kidney. Like, me and my husband's relationship was extremely tested. Like, our career in music, like, I remember I threw in like 20 grand into touring right before my tour in March 2020. I got 4 dates in, and then all of a sudden I'm gone. Like, they shut it all down, and I'm like, who's gonna pay the 20 grand that I just financed for this tour? Like, what are you talking about? And I had so much fear every single day, and I remember just like being so stressed out all the time. Me and my poor husband just like, fighting, turning on each other, and just like not understanding that like there were so many outward factors trying to tear us apart, and we went through so much, and more than any newlywed probably should. And I'm so proud that we went through all that and we're still together because I think it would have ripped a lot of people apart. So in 2020, I'm like really extra mad because this album's been out for like 2 years, my 2018 album, and I couldn't even tour. I couldn't even tour off of it. I couldn't even push it, and at that point, I was already wanting to write another record, and I found a way to get out of my label contract, and I did because I wasn't really liking how things were going, and the music industry was falling apart anyway. And so in 2020, I was able to use the pandemic stimulus checks to go help myself write another record, and sustain our bills while we go write another record. And then I was able to go ahead and track my 2020 album, which was called Stronger Than Death, that didn't see the light of day until like 2023. And that album was even more challenges that I went through to put out because I had to work like 3 jobs for 3 years to finance it. And this is somebody who like has to get all their muscle back after like a massive transplant, that took like wiped out so much of my muscle mass. So every time I would just walk, it would just be so painful. That really was psychologically messed up for 3 years. Just very dark time, just like in workload mode always, trying not to physically die, trying not to financially die, trying to keep all your relationships alive and not dying, trying to keep yourself in check and just not be so depressed, and I just got to the point where I was working for like 3 years straight and I just stopped feeling anything, which was a terrifying feeling because I didn't understand that I was going through depression. I guess I didn't have the words for it, or I didn't think that I was like, oh, just get over it, like, you're not depressed, it's fine, or like, it just didn't occur to me that like, this is what depression feels like, because I couldn't admit a lot of truths to myself, the truth that like, I was really unhappy, like, I was not sure if this whole music thing was gonna pay off because it was like nobody was helping. Like I was fully independent, really struggling, and just wondering if like this music dream was really worth pursuing anymore. And I almost tried to quit, and I was trying to figure out like what else I could do with my life. But the truth was like nothing else made me happy. And so I couldn't figure out what to do. And so the depression and like not being able to feel anymore was the scariest point, because if you're a songwriter, that's all you do is feel and put it to words. And so I was scaring myself because I was like, I can't feel joy. I can't feel anything. I just feel like nothing.
Numb.
It's awful, horrible feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. and I wasn't. I finally we scrounged up like $33,000 like to finally put out this record, and 2023 it came out in February, and then by December 2023 we got a call that Crossover Records, the label owned by Brian Head Welch from Korn, wanted to sign us, and it was just such a victory. And now we're fast forward 2 years, and we're about to put this record out that we have with this label deal, and it's that's where Love and Loss comes in. It's a lot of stories, and I haven't even gotten to that song, but yeah, intermission there, I guess.
You've opened up a lot of doorways, and I want to touch on a few things that you've mentioned. Number one is it seems like your identity was something that you had to really reach into and try to discover even from youth, like going back to Mexico for a little while, you said, and then going to Texas. But it was on, I think there's been a big process of self-discovery along the way. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think it's like, I remember just being in Mexico and just like asking myself, and maybe you're just developing and you're like figuring out the world, but I started asking myself a lot of existential questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is this life? Like, I really felt like it was the Matrix, like those movies. Like, nothing really felt real to me. And I was like, it's very bizarre to feel as an 11-year-old. And I started like wondering, like, if this life is all there is, like, all I have to do is go to college and do what I'm told and go to like work and just, I guess, retire and die, you know? Like, I didn't really want to live that life, and I was looking for deeper meaning in everything. And when I was in Mexico as like this 11-year-old kid, I knew that my family was Christian, but I didn't really read the Bible. So that year I started reading the Bible, and I felt like the pages were just jumping out at me, like the things that Jesus was saying to his disciples, he was saying to me. And that's where I really kind of started my journey with identity, because I started to see what God said about me. Yeah. And use my gifts for him, you know, and there was so many points where I didn't understand what he was doing, and just over time he's just been so faithful and like revealed himself to me. So yeah.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask you too about your kidneys. My daughter is an RN at a dialysis center. I was curious,
Yes.
did you do any dialysis at all?
So thankfully, we caught it in time where I didn't have to do dialysis, and I'm very grateful, because I think that would have been really traumatizing for me already.
Yeah, if you
It
don't
was
like
already
needles, that's not the place for you.
And that's what I was worried about. I was like, you know, my cat got trapped in a door like a month, but like no, the week my transplant was supposed to be May 15th of 2019. My cat bit me because he was stuck in a door and I was trying to pull him out. So they canceled my whole transplant. And I was so scared that I wasn't going to get another date. And thankfully a month later opened up. But I was like, dude, if they don't get me in, I'm going to have to do dialysis.
Wow.
And I can't do that. Like, I was just so discouraged mentally, emotionally, physically. And I remember just like being so sick that like I couldn't really function for more than about like 4 hours a day. Like they don't let you get a transplant until your kidneys are like pretty much done. Like they have to be at like 10%, 20 to 10% lower in function.
Wow.
And so by that point you're already feeling like I'm just feeling like I'm dying, dude. And I remember just sleeping for like 12 hours a day, and then like not being able to do more like than anything like 4 hours of like activity or walking, and just sleeping and being freezing all the time. And it was just like I'm dying, and like they won't let me get it yet, you know, like and the dialysis is just like, please, I don't want to go through that. It's awful.
Yeah. So I want to start talking a little bit more about your music, and then of course we can transition into grief. You said that, you know, you've surrounded yourself with some popular artists, Brian Head Welch from Korn. I've seen pictures with you and Lacey Sturm. You know, there's a lot of people out there that you've been around. What are you learning in the music career, or tell me more about the people that you are surrounding yourself with?
Yeah, it's I mean, hanging out and being friends. I mean, I'm very new friendship with Lacey, and I'm really like, she's definitely one of the most influential band people that, like, there's just a level of respect I have for her. It's just insane. And Brian is just, I don't even know. Like, he's like your best friend. I don't know. He's like my boss, but he's like a friend. He's like a hang. And what I've noticed about these really successful people is they're honestly just really genuine. They're just
Hmm.
themselves. They don't really like try that hard, and people gravitate to them because they're genuine. And yeah, so like I feel like I can be myself. I feel like the level of musicianship is like having Brian's respect for my musicianship is like insane to me. That's just mind blowing. It's a massive compliment to be endorsed by someone like him, who's just like written these like really iconic guitar parts that like have impacted culture so much. And Lacey just writing such beautiful music that I enjoyed so much in my teenagehood. She doesn't try hard, man, and people just
Hmm.
fall in love with who she is and her calm, sweet spirit, and like you just feel at peace around her. You just feel like I don't have to try and be anything. It's just cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I've followed both for many years, and I even reached out to Lacey one time. I think she was very vocal about losing her grandmother, and I'm like, she would be good on this show.
Yeah.
I never heard back, but honestly, I really feel like the first time I really started paying attention to Brian Head Welch was I saw him on the I Am Second movement, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's the dude from Corn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was just like, this is an amazing story this guy has. But
Yeah.
it's great that you've had a lot of surrounding around your music career. Can you see a big difference from when you started? I guess you said you started writing music at a younger age, and like where you're moving to now. Is it almost like living a different life for you?
I don't know. Like the crazier part of myself kind of knew deep down that like all this was always going to happen. I can't explain it. It's like I don't know. But yeah, I do. I realize like life is very strange. It's bizarre. The things I've been through in the last decade are very bizarre, and you can't predict some of those things. But deep down, like the main things that have happened, I felt have always were gonna happen, and then like there's future things I think that still will happen that is really hard for me to explain. I don't know. I just chalk it up to like maybe the Holy Spirit just talks to people. I don't know, but everything I've done is because of submitting to the process of my faith and like living it out and like being humble and working hard and not cheating, not lying. You know, forgiving people that have hurt me. And I think that if I didn't go through those small things, they wouldn't have built the character to handle something like this. So, when, God takes a long time to prepare you for something, so he'll tell people, like in the Bible, it talks about, he told people Jesus was going to come, he told people the birth of the virgin was going to happen. And, some people had ears to hear and they, sometimes they hear it. Sometimes they accept it, other people don't. They can't accept certain supernatural things. And so I don't know. I just love my faith. I love that it's so supernatural. I love that it's such an adventure, but it also comes with a lot of testing and hardship that is bound to happen, and your faith is going to be tested like crazy. And so I definitely feel like looking back, I'm just so different than I used to be, and I didn't know that I could stretch so intensely, that quickly, and I could overcome my most primal fears. It's
Yeah.
it's it's a lot to absorb.
Yeah, and I think this banks back into the identity piece. Like I never wanted to be a therapist, and I know it's really hard to see right now, but I used to have hair as long as yours. Well, maybe not quite as long as yours, but I used to have long
Yeah.
hair and thought I was going to be a rock star, and it just didn't work out. But whenever I started looking back at my life, whenever I was like 6, 7 years old, I always enjoyed talking to people. So now at 50 years old, it's like I think I was always called to be a therapist, and it's an easy fit for me. So you're stating, I maybe this was always in the cards for you. You always knew somehow, some way that this is where you would be. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that too because
Mhm.
it was like, sometimes I'd have guilt and I'd be like, well, what makes me more better than other people to get to this point, And I don't know if it's really about that. And there are people that, I remember especially like during 2020 to 2023 when I'm working so hard to put this independent album out and nobody sees the success. Like, no, everyone's just like, Susie, are you sure you should do that? Like, you can always just quit. And I'm like, well, technically I can. I have like tens of thousands of dollars invested in this. I can't really just quit, but, you'd see your friends and family would just see you suffering so much and they'd be like, why are you doing this? And that was really confusing because these are people that love me and have like my best interests at heart, but I have to also see what God is telling me. And like maybe
Yeah.
they don't see that. And a lot of times you see that in the Bible where like people were told things that sounded like God preferred them or they had favor over their life more than others, like Joseph, he was his brothers got jealous of him, and they did terrible things. And all Joseph had was a dream. That's all he had, and they were so
Mm.
offended by that, and it didn't even happen yet. But that's what maybe God was speaking to him. And sometimes people don't understand what God is trying to tell you, and sometimes the opposite is the reality. And you're like, okay, am I just crazy because you're telling me this, and the reality is completely not that. Like I must be crazy. And that was the hardest part of that like grief part from like 2020 to 2023 that we really haven't even gotten to talk about really yet. Was those really formidable years where like, okay, here's the promise, but it's not happening.
Mm.
Nothing is happening. And I just look like a fool and I feel like I'm suffering for nothing. And God really started talking to me in that time, and I realized how important those seasons of like wilderness is with Him, because you can't really like replace what is done in secret. Like you have to be forged in secret before you're shown to the world, And I'm just so grateful that I didn't give up and I trusted the right voice, despite people that love me probably discouraging me without realizing it.
Yeah. I want to use one of your quotes here, and maybe this will segue into some really good speech about grief. But you've said your music exists so people can grieve, rejoice, fight, and conquer. Tell me more
Yes.
about that.
Yeah. I mean, some stuff that is blocking us is so deep inside of us that like we don't even realize it stops us. For me, like I was told what to do a lot of my life, and every time I had like original ideas, I would maybe look stubborn or crazy to other people, but it was freedom. I was looking for freedom. And when you're not really able to find, like when you don't understand how you feel or why you feel it gets really scary. And I just remember those times where like I was so depressed and I stopped feeling anything, and I had to really deep down look at what is actually going on, because I know life isn't supposed to be like this, and it's not supposed to be this hard, and it's not supposed to be this grief filled. And when is it gonna end? Because I can't do this much longer. It was like 5 years of just nonstop obstacles and turmoil and fear, and I just feel like that was a half life, and so sometimes I write music without understanding like why I'm writing it until it's done, and then I like get the final, and then I listen back, and then time passes and I realize why I said that. And so we don't really understand our emotions sometimes, and just getting it out helps us understand. But sometimes when other people can articulate it, it helps a lot too. So with my music, I just want people to like break through, honestly, like whatever emotionally is holding you back, whatever you have to do that you have to do, this is a song to help you do that, or express something that is blocking you. So yeah, that's what I guess you can say, that's what I do.
Yeah. I was listening to your newest song, and there's a lot of lyrics that hit me personally. And it's like, I think the way you wrote the song versus maybe the way a listener hears the song, how it impacts the people that are kind of circling through our minds as we listen to certain songs. I think it's really amazing that, like you said, it's almost like grief is relative to you. I always
Mm-hmm.
say, like, if you and I both lost, let's say, a grandmother, I didn't lose your grandmother, right? So I don't know how that personally affects you. You didn't lose my grandmother. You don't know how that affects me. But we can listen to, say, the same song and get something completely different out of it. So let's
Yeah.
talk about the new song.
Yeah, love and loss. So oh, this part is hard because this is like after the album came out. So like I said, in 2023 we released my sophomore album, Stronger Than Death, and we were in talks with Brian's label, his reps at first. And what happened was it took a couple months for them to kind of get their ducks in a row and everything. And by February, that's when we actually got the official deal of 2024. And what was really tough is that we got that call, I think like on a Wednesday or something, or Monday, and then 2 days, and we ended up calling my husband's father, Alan, and we told him the good news, and he was like so happy for us, and he had helped us a lot throughout our music career, like, you know, dadager and stuff, just like when he didn't have a representative yet. And so he was really involved as a financer too. Like, he helped us get so much stuff that we needed for the band. And you know, he had been waiting just to see us get to this point. And that night we called him and we told him that they wanted to proceed with the deal and everything was a go. And 2 days later, he ended up passing away. He actually coded, and then 4 days after he coded that day, then he actually officially passed away. And at that point, I had thought a lot about death, and I'm not proud to say that it was kind of because I was so depressed. At some point, I was like, okay, well, what's on the other side of death? Because it's so sad for me to admit. I hate admitting that I was so obsessed with death because I was just so unhappy. And I had researched a lot of near-death experiences on YouTube, and I just wanted to see what was out there and what people experienced when they did clinically pass away and then they were revived. And a lot of this song, Love and Loss, talks about just like these visual things that inspired me while watching those interviews. And the reason my father-in-law ended up passing away was because he had heart surgery the week before, and a week later he had a very delayed allergic reaction to this one drug called heparin that they give you during heart surgery, and it was starting to create tons of blood clots in him, and his heart failed, and then he went coded. Then they brought him back and he was alive for 4 more days. And thank God, like, all the family was able to gather by his bedside before he officially passed away. And I had just gotten over this like whole journey with death through my transplant. And I had written a whole album of it called Stronger Than Death. And it was literally the 1-year anniversary of that album when he passed away. And I was so upset because I was so ready to move on from death. I was so sad that I had been through so much grief, and I was just ready to move on and write this new album and get on with this deal and live my life, you know. And then all of a sudden my father-in-law passed away in the middle of all this, and everything changed, you know. All the estate, all the business stuff, everything, you know, all the just loans, everybody just came and just took away our lives, you know. And it was so hard for my husband. And I saw my mother-in-law go through this insane grief, and I ended up writing a lot of this song in her perspective, especially the bridge, because she got a lot of judgment from people on how she grieved and how she mourned. And, you know, to this day I get upset because, you know, people's judgments on widows are just so awful. And I just got upset because, you know, my mother-in-law had to do whatever she needed to do to survive the next night, you know. And, you know, she ended up, you know, dating another man very quickly and got a lot of judgment for that because she couldn't handle being alone in that house, you know. And anyway, I started writing this song about her perspective of like how if anybody loved Alan, it was that woman, okay? Like, nobody loved him as much as she did, okay? So you guys in your judgment, you can go somewhere, because you guys are going home to your spouse tonight, and you will never understand what it's like, that grief and that turmoil, to not be with the love of your life, and how insane that would make you. And so I started with that feeling of what she would feel, and as I kept writing that song, I started to pull into my own well of grief. and questioning like why I had been through like 5 years of all this pain. And it just kind of makes you mad, you know. And that year my marriage had a lot of difficulties as well. It just felt like the foundation was just being pulled from under you, and you're like, how long is this gonna happen? How long is this up and down gonna go? And it just made perfect album material. So we literally wrote this fourth album in the middle of this awful chaos in the summer of 2024, June, July, August. And I understand now why God had this happen and reveal all these things, because the revelation for these new songs, it's hard for me to talk about. Like, you see me getting choked up because it's this like really deep stuff of my life that I have to go talk about and display for public people that are strangers that don't know me, you know. And it's scary to be on the stand like that and have to deal with all the memories, you know. But I'm just really grateful that people are going to hear this album, because I know I'm not the only one that has suffered like this the last several years. I know that people's lives were destroyed from the pandemic. They lost people. I mean, like, I literally had to create like a new shelf in my house just for cremated pets and family members. Like, I hate that I had to make space in my house for urns, you know. And so this song, I just hope like helps people process grief.
So what's easier, to write a song about grief or to sit here on this podcast and express it?
This is really hard for me.
It is hard, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was like, I need to go on a grief podcast, because this is unpacking years of trauma for me. So, yeah,
I'm very grateful for you to be here. And it is hard to express it. And, you know, it's like, again, it's personal to you, but yet you're opening up your life and the things that people don't see. You know, they hear your songs, they, you know, they can play them on whatever, you know, Apple or whatever media they want to. But whenever you start opening up your story, it becomes very personal. And it's like, wow, now I see even more meaning behind that song, you know, and it's tough. That's why I encourage people. I always say everybody needs a therapist. I jokingly say I've got a therapist on retainer, even though I haven't seen her in over a year, but I know she's there if I need her.
Yeah.
And I think we all need it. Even therapists need therapists, right? So
yeah.
But no, it's grief is such a weird thing, and I think, like you're stating, until it hits your house, you really don't think about it. You don't. I started having really bad panic disorder whenever I was 20 years old, and before then, I really thought I was immortal. I lived like I was immortal. And then when I started having panic disorder, it's like, oh my gosh, like I could die doing this. Or, you know, I started having worry all the time. And I really started processing death. And I was already a believer at that time. But it's like, I don't think I really thought about how temporal this life really is and how many goodbyes that I would have to say by the time I'm 50. And luckily, I've still got a lot of people in my life, but I've always thought about, you know, the longer you live, the more goodbyes you're going to have to say. And I also say that the less people that will be at your funeral. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I'm seeing, you know, my grandmother lose everybody, you know, she's the last one. And, you know, my mom is taking care of her, and she has many children, but she had to watch her parents leave the earth. She had to watch her sister leave the earth, her husband. Like, she's like the last matriarch, you know? And I just can't imagine, you know, it's like we don't really think about it from their perspective, the elderly, and it's just got to be really tough. But I mean, this whole life is just a mystery. Like, we'll never fully understand it. We'll never fully understand why things happen here. I don't think we're meant to. And, either you cling to some belief system, you know, that I personally believe there's only one truth. And I don't know where I would be without that truth. I think I can't imagine going through all these things without a point of hope like that. You know, I know people like get mad at God when like tragedy like hits their life, but I couldn't imagine going through this without him, because everything is so out of your control. Like you're saying, like you're not invincible. You could die like living with the fear that any infection can just take me out if I don't make it in time to the hospital, or seeing my father-in-law pass away because he had, diabetes, and they couldn't give him a certain med without interacting with the other med. And it's just a medical clash. Like, you can't save that person because they have two different problems, that clash. And like, I saw the mother of one of my ex-boyfriends at the time that I was dating, his mother just passed away literally like in 12 hours from a septic infection in 2015. And that was 1 year before I found out that I had kidney failure. That was one of the people that also passed away that shook me enough to go get checked for any disease. And I saw how frail life was. I literally, remember walking to the hospital when I was dating that guy and him telling me she's gone. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just saw her last night. I was just over your house. What are you talking about? She's dead, And like, I don't know, maybe God was just, I don't know, preparing me for my own stuff that was going to happen, And like, I think that's why I'm a little more of a strange person, because I've had to think about death a lot, and I've had to think about after death a lot, and I've had to question myself a lot on like, is what I believe the truth? Because you can't really gamble with that stuff, when you're being told that like you're 24 and your kidneys are going to fail, and without modern medicine, you surely would have died. It's very hard to understand that as a young person. And so in a weird way, it's given me like some wisdom that I think other young people maybe just haven't realized yet. But I don't know. I've always thought about death a lot since a kid. And I felt like that was the real life and this wasn't, it's very bizarre.
Yeah. One of the things that you're talking about, you had mentioned hope. And in my paperwork at my office, I ask people, do you have a religious preference in counseling, et cetera, et cetera? And if they don't mark that, they're a believer or whatever, I always ask, where do you find your hope? And a lot of people will say, well, in myself. And I'm like, okay, so when that runs dry, where do you go next? And they just look absolutely boggled, like, I don't know, and I don't know what I would do without God, certainly. And I think there's nothing that brings people to those type of questions like death.
Yeah.
So,
And I had a strong relationship with God, and I still started questioning after my diagnosis. I was like, hang on, wait, are you sure? Are you sure? And I don't want to be in a lie. I don't want to believe a lie over something that is true, But once again, he proved faithful, showed me everything's gonna be okay. He talked to me a lot during that time. And that's why I'm using full force, like this entire story and everything I've been through, just as ammunition for people for these songs, because I know I'm not the only one that has been through like a nightmarish 5 years. Like, people are shells of themselves. They don't remember the good times, And I've just seen a lot of people lose a lot of stuff, a lot of people. 2024 was like the year of dads passing away in my life. All my friends' dads passed away. Like, thank God my dad is still alive, but he's like the last one out of me and my husband and my brother-in-law. It's like all of their dads have passed away now, and he's the last dad.
wow.
So I'm just like trying to wake people up. I'm like, death is coming, man. Like, you gotta figure your life out now. And you just never know. So it's just too big for us to understand. Like, this life is crazy.
It is. And I think enjoying life is a big part of that as well. We have to, not just survive, but we got to learn how to thrive while we have it, because it is very temporary. I want to ask you about some of the lyrics in Love and Loss, and there were a lot of lines that I really liked, can you tell me when this grief is going to end? That's one of the biggest questions that I get in the counseling office is like, am I going to do this forever? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes, you will always grieve forever, but it's going to change. You look at whenever you came out of surgery and you're fighting off doctors and everything, you probably had the mindset that, oh my gosh, this pain hurts way too much. I have got to get rid of it. And I always tell people that, if you look at your problems now, I promise you in 90 days from now, your problems are going to look way, way different. You may have some of the same problems, but it's still going to be different. Maybe you have different ideas on how to face or fight certain things. One of the other lines was the pain I own, I can't escape. And of course, admitting I'm not fine, right? And I think that's one of the things that people have a really, really tough time stating is, I'm not fine. We put up this mask that says, yeah, I've got this, I'm doing okay. And then, we go to our corner and cry or whatever. When you were writing some of these lyrics, like, what were you thinking? And did it come all at once, or was this kind of a thing that you had to piece together along the way?
Oh man, it was years of questions. It was like years of like, is this normal? Like this is I don't know, man. Like I gotta be just doing something wrong. Like this cannot be normal. Like and I think I was just so used to like being in control and trying to fix my own life, which was just not working, man. It was just like building. I just kept seeing like I kept like being so angry, and I'm like, why am I so angry all the time? Like if anything, if that's all I feel is that or nothing, anger or nothing, it was just so awful. And I started just like entertaining stupid voices and like looking for answers of my pain that to explain this to me, like explain why I had to go through this, what benefit, it was, honestly, I was like, I should have just died. Like I shouldn't have done this transplant. I should have just given up then, because this is too much and I'm going to die anyway. Like either COVID's going to take me out, I'm going to die from some random infection, I'm going to die from some medication, I don't know, like I have allergies, like I'm going to die from an asthma attack, like anything's just, and at that point you're just like in survival mode, and it just turns into like anger, and so yeah, there was years that I didn't have the answers, and I would get frustrated in prayer, because I think my anger blocked a lot of what God was trying to tell me at the time, though. And I think that I was just going through things I didn't recognize because I'd never been through them before. So usually I would fix my own life. I'd manage myself. I'd manage my emotions. Even if I wasn't good at regulating them, I would just keep them all in. And just, I guess life was just beating me up so bad, I just ended up accepting it. And that's when I started to feel nothing, and yeah, go ahead.
Has there been any time where you felt like God was silent and yet you really wanted to hear from him?
I will definitely tell you this story. I hope people don't judge me, but I definitely remember being at my waitressing job and just being so angry that day because you just don't make enough and they treat you like crap. And I'm literally cleaning these glasses, like these bar glasses, next to the dish pit, and this random woman, I'm literally thinking to myself, like, maybe I just don't hear God, and maybe I'm just crazy. Like, it's okay. Let's just admit it. It's just time to come home. Like, it's okay. And I'm thinking this to myself. I don't hear God. I'm just crazy. And this woman at the bar who's sitting there just like jolts and looks straight at me, and she says, "Oh, you hear God and you know it." And
wow.
I just didn't really say anything. I just put the glasses down and walked away and smiled. And I was like, how did she hear my thoughts? Like, who? And I was like, I didn't tell anybody for a long time this happened to me. I didn't know what to make of it. And that's when I was a believer. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not crazy. And maybe she's right. And maybe I do. It was like God talking to me, dude. I can't make this up, man. Wow. That's why I don't tell people, because they think I'm lying, and I'm not. And God used another human being to talk to me through my thoughts. He knew my thoughts. And that day I was just like, okay, if he's going to talk to me like this, then I'm the dumb one for not believing at this point. Even if my reality doesn't, check out. Right. And like nobody cares about my music. I'm not getting picked up. Like I'm working really hard, and that's when I just realized, no, I'm right. I am right. And God does talk to me, and it's not because I'm good or better than anybody. It's just a plan. Sometimes it's just the plan. Okay. And just because it's the plan and you're favored in that way doesn't mean you won't go through absolute testing in hell, okay? People are like, oh, I want what you have. No, you don't. You don't want to go through this. You don't want to do what I had to do to prepare myself for this, okay? Emotionally, mentally, my character, like if you could, you would have at this point, but you can't even discipline to wash your dishes. So, you hate on me for no reason, okay? Like, it took a lot of discipline and train wreck shows and not being good to get to this point. And, I just, like I said, when you submit to that process and that fire, like, it's not wasted. Like, none of your pain is wasted. So, yes, there were times, like, I did hear God, but I gaslit myself a lot. Like, there was another time when he was, like, I felt he was quiet. I didn't understand the reality because the truth is he had already talked to me. He'd already spoken it. It was my unbelief that was not allowing me to, like, believe it. So that's why I was double-minded. I was constantly like, no, yes, no, yes. And I just remember being, like, sitting in prayer and being like, Jesus, I don't know what's going on. This isn't working for me. And I just felt this voice in my heart tell me, no, you are a warrior. You are going to do this. And that was not an original thought in my mind. I'm telling you that right now. I was at the lowest of the low. I didn't even know how to talk to myself like that, And so, I think God is real. I think that stuff is real. I've experienced it. So, that's why I just try to use what I can to help others and encourage them when they're going through, like, those seasons that I did where, like, it's just darkness and you feel like you're flying blind and you don't know what to do. It's just stay steady, like, just believe.
So maybe this is the $1,000,000 question, but do you feel like whether it's Love and Loss or the whole album or maybe even a previous album, have you found measures of healing throughout this process?
I think right now, as this album comes out, a lot of it is, like, being completed. Not that I didn't heal so much, but, like, I gotta say, like, I'm happier than I've ever been right now in my life. In fact, like, I'm a little scared because I'm like, hold on, this is too good. Like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, what, and I'm literally, even, like, the last couple of days, I'm, like, been a little nervous. I'm like, my life is too good right now. This is a fake. This isn't real. Like, because you were so used to the pit for so long, And, what is it? I have been healing by seeing the reactions of people through these songs, through their feedback and how it's helping them and how God's talking to them through the music. I just had somebody message me and be like, God just talked to me through your song. Like, I feel so happy, so much better now. Like, and thank you so much for that song. And that's happened to me too. I've felt like he's talking to me through songs too. And maybe some people haven't experienced that, but I have. And so just to be able to be the vessel that helped me as a teen, listening to music and feeling these feelings that were just so intense and real and joy, to be a vessel for people to experience what I did is the whole point of it. It's about them listening to this music. So, I just hope it's a good testament. I hope it's a great record. I hope it sounds good. I hope it's, hypes people up and they're not just telling me that. I hope it's really actually good album.
Yeah. So if somebody is hearing, say, Love and Loss for the first time, that is going through moments of their own grief, what do you hope they get from it?
I hope that, like the chorus of that song is, like, means the most to me. And it starts with, tell me that I'm okay. I'm all right. Tell me there's a purpose for my life. Tell me it'll make sense when I die, because I know I'm not fine. And for me, like, that was my hope. I was like, man, I just hope that, like, when I die, all of this makes sense, that why I had to go through this. Because that was the hardest question for me to answer, was like, why did I have to go through this? And so if you can just have someone acknowledge that question and just have faith that, like, it's gonna make sense. It will. You just don't see it. Like you were saying, like, 90 days from now, you're going to look at them totally different. And maybe it's not 90 days. Maybe it's like 90 months. Okay. Maybe it's like 3 or 4 years. Okay. But you can't give up. And, I do talk a lot about death again on this album. I didn't want to because my whole last album is about that. But there's a point in this album where, like, your old self has to kind of die. And especially on track 6, it's called The Pyre. And that whole song is basically about, like, you can't hold on to this flesh anymore. Like, you cannot keep letting your natural human instinct override your faith in God. And, like, you do have to strengthen your spirit, because the things coming against you right now are trying to get you to off yourself, dude. Like, you can't fall into that trap. You cannot fall into despair, because that's what it wants. And, I just, I pray that they have faith through, like, that really darkness. That's kind of why I put a lot of space elements in the lyric video, because it feels like you're in a void. and nobody can hear you. But if you just look around, like there's points of hope, there's stars, there's a little bit of light. Just keep screaming. Someone will hear you. It's not going to be like this forever. And it can feel really isolating, but there's hope out there, and just like keep grieving, keep crying. Like, don't stop crying, don't stop feeling things, don't stop speaking about it, because in the isolation is where it's really deceptive and it tries to get you to give up there. So, yeah, I hope it just helps people grieve, essentially.
So I'm going to ask you an unfair question, and we can scrap it if you want to. But let's say I met you 5 years ago, and saw your picture of grief versus today's picture of grief. What parts of grief do you think are healed? And that's a strong word, but what parts are healed versus maybe what kind of still sits behind the scenes?
So, what sits behind the scenes of like grief, or
Yeah, yeah. Like what griefs do you maybe still battle?
yeah,
Whenever
yeah.
whenever I hear your story, I think about especially going through health battles and things like that. And certainly as I just hit 50 this past year, and it's like, man, I'm like at the best of it, I'm halfway through this, and
Yeah.
that's scary for me. And of course, different tests and things that pop up health wise. I'm always thinking, okay, when will my health decline? And you've already faced that in younger years of life, and I don't know. I think there's a testament certainly that you've battled through that. And when people come to my office, they may have, I'll say, a new norm. For example, I used to love to run. My knees are shot now. I can't run anymore. So I
Mm,
have this new norm, and I grieve the person I used to be because um, he enjoyed running. I can't do that now. I've modified. I
yeah.
can still ride a bike,
Yeah.
but at what point can I not ride a bike? And then I have to find a new norm yet again. So I'm always grieving maybe previous versions of myself. I don't know if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot more sense. Some stuff I don't grieve. I'm really glad that old version is gone, actually. Definitely the fearful version of me. I don't know why I was so scared as a child. I don't know what made me feel so emotionally insecure. Like, I had great parents, but there was something missing there. But what I do agree, I wish I sometimes I wish I had the naivety, because you're definitely a lot happier. You trust people a lot more. You don't see people so evil because you haven't seen or experienced like terrible side of humanity that much yet. So I definitely miss that a little bit. But I think it's coming back. I think the goofiness I had is coming back. The joy that I used to have as a kid is definitely coming back, because I feel like I have answers for the pain I went through now. I think the hardest thing about grief is that if you don't have the answer of why things happen, it's very hard to heal something that you don't understand. And so that's just a tangent. But as for like future fears and things that I grieve, honestly, I'm gonna grieve when me or my husband passes away. Like, I love my husband. I cannot be without him. And I get
Mm.
sad that like every time I'm away from him. And I know that this life is temporary, and it's different on the other side. And I treasure this life so much with him. I am so happy he's mine, and I'm gonna be sad the day that I have to be maybe going through like my mother-in-law, or maybe I go before him. That's gonna be really grieving. But it should just make you more joyful for today and everything that you have now. So yeah, that's maybe a little bit of grief that sits behind the scenes.
Sure, sure. I'll ask you one more question, and then I'll let you just kind of finish us out with anything that you want to add, whether it's, promoting the new album or anything else you want to say. But like, if someone feels like grief has stolen something from them, like, what would you want them to know?
Grief has stolen something from them. That is definitely a valid feeling.
Let me add something to that real quick
Yeah.
because you were talking about the loss of a spouse, and I jokingly say in counseling sometimes that 50% of marriages end in divorce, the other half end in death. Like that's not
Yeah.
good odds, right? Um, but if you're right that one of us, me or my wife, will say goodbye to the other unless we're taken together or something.
Yeah.
It's but generally there is one person that has to say goodbye. And I see so many people that you're not just losing a spouse, you're also losing this vision for what the future is supposed to have for you, right? That, or at least that's what we think is supposed to be our future. So anyway, I see a lot of people feeling like something
Yeah.
that they were robbed of
Oh
a
yeah, the robbed
future.
feeling, totally, dude. And that is like so tough. Like I remember like when I went through the kidney transplant, I couldn't possibly imagine that scenario for my life, you know. And same with losing somebody like a spouse. You can't. I mean, like deep down, like yeah, like everybody knows deep down you have to go through death, you know. But we just all assume we have all this time, you know. And like, wait a second, who told you to assume that? Because you don't know that.
Right.
But I mean, dude, like life is gonna hit you. There will be absolutely things that destroy your version of things of how you think they should be. Okay. And sometimes through losing stuff, you gain something else or you gain kind of like a new future, you know, and that's really hard. I mean, the point is put your hope in Jesus because you can't control anything in this life. You can't
Amen.
even control going out your front door. You don't know what's going to happen to you, or a plane could just hit your house, you know, like that's the point. You don't know, you know, and you can't just bank on this future that you thought you were going to have because that's not how life goes. And so I know the shock of it is real. The shock is painful, you know. I was dating a guy before my husband. I totally thought I was going to marry. And it was so devastating to like go through that breakup and that whole future I thought I was going to have, which my current future is way cooler. I'm really happy I didn't marry that guy. And you just never know what you're going to gain instead. And yes, it's going to be years of grief and not understanding, okay? You just weather it. I promise, like you haven't seen the end of it yet. You know, you have to give it a chance. And maybe, I mean, I don't know how it ties in with somebody that you love, you know, losing them, but you know, because that's just painful. I mean, but like stuff that you lose that is temporary, like maybe it's a new opportunity. So I would just say like, hey, dude, you don't know what tomorrow brings. Maybe this tragedy in your life ends up being a cornerstone of who you are, and you can do a lot of good with it. So it really depends how you handle it as a person and what you decide to do with grief. You can either use it as a positive force, or you can let it destroy you, which you don't benefit anything from that. You know, and the person that you lost wouldn't want you to feel like that either. So that's my view on it.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time. It's been an awesome interview, and I've loved our time here, getting to know you a little bit better. But any final words that you have for our listeners?
Keep on, man. Keep on. There's gonna be days that feel like they're trying to kill you, and you just gotta pick up your sword and you gotta fight. And just it's a lot of mental battles. It's a lot of psychological battles. Take every test that you go through just as training. You know, everything that you know. Just be okay with losing sometimes and not having a good day, and doing what you can that day. But also get up and fight because it's you at the end of the day, man. It's your life, and you cannot waste this precious life. You're on borrowed time. You gotta figure out your purpose and make good with it because you don't know how much time you have left. So it definitely leaving this world. What you leave behind is more important because you can't take anything with you. That's something I really understood when my father-in-law passed away, that like, you know, all his toys and stuff was left behind, you know, like this beautiful house he built, you know, my mother-in-law's still in, but you know, it's like he only got to enjoy it for like 2 years, you know, and then he passed away. And it's like, you cannot take things with you when you pass, but you can leave behind something really amazing or something bad, you know, like what legacy do you want to leave? So hopefully that leaves people with some thinking, you know, because until you experience death, you don't realize how real it is and how everybody acts too, like right after it, and who's there and who's not, and who's there for selfish gain and who's not. And yeah, so be sober minded, figure it out. Time is short, and keep jamming the songs.
There you go. So Love and Loss, obviously, when's the full album come out at once?
Yeah, September 4th. So we're almost there, actually. The Love and Loss is actually the last single before the full thing drops on the 4th of September.
Awesome. I look forward to it. And listeners, I encourage you to go pick it up and support Zahna in all that she does. Be on the lookout. Are you going to be doing a lot of touring or anything?
In 2027. Yeah, looks like that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, if you ever come to East Tennessee, I will definitely check it out. So.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.